Any seats next to you, make sure that you scoot in if possible so we can have, maybe we're just full. But make sure every seat is filled. I don't know if there's chairs nearby we can bring in, but there's benches, we could maybe facilitate that a little bit. Welcome to the Science Vision Seminar. We are so excited to have you here, to have our special guest here from Dr. Jensen from UIU. I will turn the time over to Lindsay Cheney to introduce our speaker.
So we're super excited to have Dr. Jensen speak to us today about evolution and religion. So Dr. Jensen, she got her PhD from Arizona State University. She's an associate professor at UIU, where she studies biology, education, and research, and is interested also in evolution and religion also. So we're excited to have her.
Okay, well hopefully we can do the slides like that. Did everybody get a chance to sign into the poll everywhere? It's on. Was it there for a minute? I'll try again. It was there though, you saw it. Everything was fine from my end. My screen is empty. You can recall your answer if you haven't figured that out yet. It's all anonymous. I won't know who you are, so feel free to be honest. Fun to see it bounce around. You're like having all this control over the whole set. Okay. That gives me a good idea. Okay. All right, so let's talk about first, let's start with what science is and what religion is and how they're the same and how they're different. We'll see how they're different. Okay? So I want to start with a little analogy. This is an activity I do in my classes at BYU to talk about how science works. And this is a very important thing to understand as we talk about this issue. Right? So I've given students, oh, and in fact, I think I brought one. I did. Hold on. I did. Okay. So I give students a Lego contraption that's been super glued together in a bag. My students never get to see this, so consider yourself privileged. Okay. So it's in the bag, and they're not allowed to look in the bag. And everyone in the class has the same contraption in their bag. And then I give everybody a bag of Lego pieces. And they have to build what's in the bag. And every piece necessary to build what's in the bag is in here, along with a ton of other pieces that aren't necessary to build what's in the bag. And the only rule is you can't look in the bag, but you can feel in the bag. You cannot put your smartphone in and take a picture. You can't look at it. No visual information. And they have to build what's in the bag. I know we've been through it all in class. Okay, so this is 4 contraptions. Can you see that? Oh, I didn't turn it on. Technology. Okay. This is 4 contraptions that they built. This is 5 different views of that contraption. Okay? So this is what they built. And I want you to just look and see, just for a second, what differences do you see? Okay? Raise your hand if you can see a difference. Okay? Yeah. Give me a difference. Somebody? Anyone else? What do you see?
There's different colored blocks in,
Okay.
in the same
So
place.
colors are different. What other differences does anybody see? Yeah.
You look at the,
Just kidding. Oh, it's not there. Is it like going to sleep, maybe? Okay.
like the second row from the top, like the one little circle piece.
Ah, this. It's a flat one instead of a button.
Yep.
Or a flower. Okay, what else?
Angry face versus not.
Angry face versus not angry face. I don't know, it's like a
I don't know
cyborg
if it's
or
angry or
something.
not.
I don't know what it is. Do you notice this one? What do they have here? It's a cylinder piece rather than a head. Okay? So, question. Can we resolve differences with collaboration? So we'll let them work together. Could they resolve some of those differences? Probably. What kind of differences could they resolve? Could they figure out whether it's a head or a cylinder? Do you feel confident you could? They're different sizes, right? So we could reach in the bag and we could gather more evidence and we could work together and do a little bit of peer review of each other to see if we can get to the right structure. Oh, did you notice here, this is two by one bricks and this is a 4 by 1? So you could definitely, what could you do to resolve that? Yeah, feel the crack. Run your finger along and feel the crack. So yeah, we can resolve some of these. How about color? How sure do you think we could get with structure? 99.9%, are we okay with that number? Okay. But color, it's going to be hard without looking in the back. So there are some things that we don't know. Is anyone's model better than another's? If we get to where we have the same structure, is anyone's model going to be better than another's? I see a lot of heads shaking no. If we don't know the color, we can't figure it out, then no one's model is better than another's for color, right? So the original contraption in the bag describes the absolute truth. What are we building? What is it? Just somebody yell out something.
Knowledge.
A what? We're building knowledge. Okay, what is the contraption they built? Is it the truth?
It's an opinion.
Is it just an opinion?
We are building quantum mechanics.
Trying to understand. Representation.
We're building a representation of the truth. And what's it based on?
Our experience.
Okay, our experience with what's in the bag. It's based on evidence that we can gather, right? So, this is how we relate it to science. So what they build is a model. And in science, we call a model a theory. Okay? And a theory is not just a guess or an opinion. A theory is the best model we can build of the truth based on all the evidence we have available to us. Now, are there certain parts of models that we're unsure of? Like color. Yeah, there's a lot of things we're unsure about that could change slightly, but rarely does a whole theory get turned upside down because the evidence is pretty clear. You guys said, how sure are we on the structure? Now, my students will go 100%. Oh, 99%. Right? That's about how sure we are. So we relate that to the theory of evolution. So the theory of evolution is the best explanation we have for the diversity of life on our planet based on all the available evidence that we have. It's built through much collaboration and peer review and gathering of more evidence till we get to we're 99% sure. But the color, details about how certain things happened or when certain things happened, those could change, right? One thing I want to point out is that hypotheses and theories have to be tested. Oh, let's talk about hypotheses for just a minute. Hypotheses are smaller than theories. Question?
Yeah, so for your definition of theory, could a theory apply to something that is inconsistent with some evidence, or does it have to be consistent with all available evidence?
So generally, to be an accepted theory in science, it's got to be consistently supported. Yeah. Okay? Now, a hypothesis is smaller, and it describes one phenomenon. So you might have said, I hypothesize that it's a Lego head and not a cylinder. Then you gather evidence, and you gather more evidence, and you talk to your peers, and you come up with, yeah, we're pretty sure it's a head, and in fact, it is a head. Okay? And you would come to that conclusion, and you put all those hypotheses together into a theory. But they have to be testable. They have to be falsifiable. So that automatically excludes anything supernatural or divine. It doesn't mean it's not true. It just means it's not something in the bounds of science, because science is agnostic. You guys know the difference, right, between agnostic and atheistic. It doesn't destroy God. It doesn't say one way or another. We don't have evidence for or against God. It's agnostic. And so if we can keep that in mind, that those are the limitations of science, it becomes less of an issue. Okay? So what's the nature of religion? Well, it depends on which religion you belong to. There's a lot of things that go into it. Scriptural interpretation, which we call hermeneutics. We learned that word the other day. Okay? Revelation. Establishment of doctrine. Who establishes doctrine? How is it established? Religious authority. Who is an authority and how do they have their authority? And personal communion with God. Right? And these are all things that are very dependent upon the religion. I was actually sitting around with a bunch of theologists and I showed them my Lego activity and I said, okay, I want an activity just like this for religion. And they just laughed and said, it all depends on which denomination you belong to. So let's keep it to just the question at hand. Here's the difference. When we're talking about evolution and creation, right, science and religion are answering different questions. So science is concerned with how it happened, what are the mechanisms, when it happened, how old is the Earth, how long ago did species diverge, that kind of thing. Whereas religion is trying to answer who and why. So who is involved and why are we here? What's the purpose of life? Those kinds of questions are outside of the realm of science. And vice versa, those other types of questions may be outside the realm of religion. And if we can keep those straight, there's less conflict. Okay? So, let's talk some statistics for just a minute. Don't let me scare you. This is not as hard as it looks. I tried to break it down. Okay, so I'm going to show you some data because we've looked at relationships because we know that religion plays a big role in whether or not you accept evolution. We know it does. That's been studied ad nauseum. We know that religion is involved. And so we looked at some relationships in my lab, and I did some structural equation modeling. So I want to just explain how to interpret these models really fast. So a latent variable. This is something we want to measure, but we can't directly. Okay, so like height and weight, I can measure on a scale. But depression or happiness, a little harder to measure with a ruler or something. Okay? And so we call it a latent variable. So how do we measure these variables? Well, we come up with survey items. Okay, let's say we're going to do grit. That was my latent variable. How much grit do you have? You guys heard this term before. How much stick-to-itiveness do you have? Okay? It's my fancy term for it. So we come up with survey items that would measure that. So what would an item be that would measure grit that you would answer? Like, how likely am I to push forward even if I fail? Or I don't see failure as a bad thing. And then you would agree or disagree with that statement. So we come up with these items that measure what we think we're measuring. I'm not going to include that in my model when I show you because it just makes it messy, but they're there. And then we might say, okay, so what things predict grit? So let's say in this case, family support, growth mindset, experience with failure. Those are also latent variables, right? We can't just measure your experience with failure. We have to ask you questions about it. Okay, and then we might also wonder, what does grit predict? So let's say we think it predicts success in college classes. Okay, and then the arrows are a direction of causality. So we're saying that those three things predict grit, which predicts success. Okay, that's how you read these. And then they'll have numbers on them, which is just the strength of the linear relationship between them. Think of it like a correlation between them. And if it has asterisks after it, it means it's statistically significant. And you might also see arrows like this that say your responses for growth mindset are highly correlated with your experiences with failure. Right? Does that make sense? I hope that was enough. Okay, so these models are sort of complicated. So here's another poll for you. This is the model we ran. So we actually surveyed people across the country of 4 different religious denominations. Southern Baptist, Jewish, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Catholic. And we wanted to know how your religiosity, which are these 3 factors, influences your views about creation and then your views about evolution. Right? Or creationist views. These are things like, I believe the earth is 10,000 years old or less. That would be something that would be on the creationist scale. And evolutionary acceptance would be, I believe the earth is really, really old. Okay? And so these measures here, religious practice, this is what do you do, how often you go to church, read your scriptures, that kind of thing. Religious influence, this is how much does religion influence what you wear, what you eat, what you do. And then religious hope is how much does religion, or how much do you believe in like miracles or an afterlife or that kind of thing. Okay? So I want you to just look at it for a second. I don't know, great answer. You can go ahead and answer, what do you notice? Okay, and again, those numbers show the strength of the relationship. If they have asterisks next to them, it means it's significant. Okay, so religious influence isn't as significant as others. Okay, here we go. Yeah, it's a smaller correlation coefficient. Religious practice isn't as significant. Okay. You know, it's kind of late. Type really fast. I'm not going to leave it on for very long, so type fast. Okay, what do you notice about the relationship between religiosity and your belief in creationist views? Right? They're a positive correlation. This one is mostly in Southern Baptist. Okay? So, what we see here is that religiosity is a positive predictor of your creationist views, which is a negative predictor, you see this number right here, strong negative predictor of your acceptance of evolution. Which is kind of one of those where you say, whoa, duh, yes. Okay, that's what we see in the research all the time. Okay? But if you look at direct relationships, religious hope does affect this. Religious practice is sort of negatively correlated, which is interesting. Evolution acceptance. Now, one of the arguments that scientists like to make, which is just one of my biggest pet peeves, is that if you reject evolution, it's because you're somehow dumb. How many of you have heard that? Just be honest. Okay. Okay, so we set out to test that. Is there a relationship between IQ-ish and your belief in religion and your acceptance of evolution? And so these same respondents, we gave them a test of their scientific reasoning ability. It's a very close test to like IQ, but in science. Okay? So we gave them that, and we ran the same model. And here it is. So this is the same religiosity factors with creationist views and evolution acceptance. And you'll notice, you kind of remember, but you'll notice that the relationships are very similar. We saw before. But here's their scientific reasoning ability. So I want you to look at these numbers here. The relationship between scientific reasoning ability and religiosity. And the relationship with these views. What do you notice? Just a second to look at them. We're not supposed to. Hey, wait, notice there's no asterisks It is 0, in essence. Does that make sense? Good. Reasoning is not a predictor of anything, it turns out. Your scientific reasoning ability does not predict whether you're religious or not, nor does it predict whether you accept or reject evolution. Okay? Which means that you could be highly intelligent scientifically and reject evolution for different reasons, or the opposite. You could be really poor at scientific reasoning, is a good way to say it, and accept evolution. Okay? So it doesn't have to, it's not an IQ thing. It's not an IQ thing, and I think that's important to realize. Right? So we don't want to be telling people if you reject evolution, you're dumb. That's a terrible and counterproductive argument. Okay? So, sorry, this one's really big. We're looking at other predictors of acceptance of evolution. And I'll just break this one down for you. Okay, so these are our acceptances of evolution. We actually broke it up into macro-human evolution and then micro-evolution, which is like adaptation type things. And what we find is that your sense of conflict between science and religion is a negative predictor. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily have to do with your particular denomination or what your denomination might say about evolution. It's just this feeling that I can't have science and religion together. And that predicts that. General religious influence is how much does your religion influence decisions you make about anything. And it turns out that doesn't predict anything. Okay? Now, your religion's stance on evolution is a predictor, negative predictor, which we would expect. Scientific stance on evolution is a positive predictor, which we would expect. What's interesting is this one. So this is how much do you rely on scientific evidence when you make decisions about anything controversial. And it turns out that's a high positive predictor of both acceptance. So if you understand and rely on science, you're more likely to accept evolution. So it's not an intelligence thing, maybe it's more of an exposure thing. And how much you understand the nature of science. And it turns out other studies have confirmed the same thing, that your understanding of the nature of science is a big predictor of whether you accept evolution or not, which is why we go through the LEGO activity and help people understand what science actually is. And then these are just some predictors we put in there for fun, so whether you went to a public or private school, it's a negative predictor. Whether your high school covered it is a positive predictor, and then what your religion says about it is a predictor. Okay? So kind of interesting. We'll keep going. Okay, so let's just make sure that we understand what I'm talking about when I say evolution, because I've said evolution probably 30 or 40 times in this talk and never defined it. My bad. Let's define it now. And I want to talk about some of the things that we found in the research that seem to be impediments for acceptance with students. Okay? So, I'm going to give you a chance. What is evolution? By the way, notice in blue, you have to put a dash between or it just submits the first word you said. Okay, so put a dash between your definition. Maybe anyone here figures this out. I like what's been put up there. Growth, change, monkeys. So we're going to talk about? We'll talk about that one. No one's doing the long word. Like if you want to do change over time, you have to do change dash over dash time. There we go. There they're coming. Beautiful, awesome diversity. Adaptation. Okay? Good. This is a word cloud. Kind of fun. A little hard to watch. Growth, change, adaptation. Okay? Interestingly, I saw that up there that it's change in humans. Is evolution only dealing with human evolution? No, it's not, but that's a common thing that people associate with evolution. It's just monkeys to man, right? Which I should shout out to Darwin, happy birthday. He didn't actually ever say that, so that's what made it pop into my mind, because that's what everybody's going to say. Okay, cool. We're going to move on. Sorry, that's so fun, so we're going to move on. So, what is it not? Let's start there. What is evolution not? These are common misconceptions we see. I've read literally thousands of student essays on this topic, and we've seen a lot of misconception. It gets in the way of acceptance. Number one existing species that evolved into another. Says monkeys to man. No self-respecting biologist would ever say that, because that's not true. If they exist today, they didn't evolve into something else because they're still here. Okay? And so that's a common misconception. We'll talk about the better conception in just a minute. Pokemon. Okay? I cannot tell you how many essays I've seen Pokemon. And I didn't even know anything about Pokemon until I started reading essays, and so then I had to go research. Pokemon. But evidently Pokemon characters evolve themselves. Like they grow wings and then they start breathing fire and do all kinds of cool stuff. And so organisms evolving in their own lifetime is wrong. But this is what I'm seeing in essays. Students will say, well, I guess evolution is a lot like Pokemon, where they start evolving wings and then they can fly. And if that's the case, yeah, no, I don't accept evolution. I think, oh, neither would I. That's crazy. Okay? And so when they have a misconception about what evolution is, we tend to reject the theory even though we got it wrong. Okay? And the last one is ladder thinking. This is the idea that humans are somehow the pinnacle, that like an earthworm given long enough will become a human. And that also seems really crazy, right? And so yeah, I would reject evolution too if that's what I thought, that earthworms are eventually going to turn into humans. So let's talk about what the right conception is for these. Right, so for the first one organism turning into another that's extant, it's that we share a common ancestor. So if you ask, the humans-monkeys thing, the correct answer is that humans and modern-day monkeys share a common ancestor. It was not a human or a monkey. It's something else. It's a common ancestor that we share. So it's branching evolution. For the Pokemon, individuals do not evolve, populations do. So some members of the population die off, some members survive and reproduce. Those that survive and reproduce are the ones that pass on their genes, and the population evolves over time. Right? Oh, we lost it again. Okay. And then branching. All existing species have been evolving at the same amount of time. An earthworm is just as evolved as a human. How many of you can eat dirt and get nutrition from it? If you're desperate enough, maybe. Okay, so they're just as evolved as we are, just in a different way. All right? So correcting some of those misconceptions seems to help. This is how we define evolution. The change in the genetic composition of a population over time. How much time? Usually a long time. Right? Sometimes it can happen quickly if something drastic happens. But generally it's a very long time, and it's just the change in the genetic composition over time. And most students that I say this to say, oh, well, yeah, I'm okay with that. Right? But what they're not okay with is change enough that we become different species. And so that's what I want to talk about here really quickly. I want you to vote. Which of the following is your viewpoint on micro versus macro? You've all heard that distinction, yes? Micro versus macro. That's good. I'm glad you're being honest. Thank you. Because that will help me in what I need to say. Okay. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, so let's talk about what do we mean by micro and macro evolution. How many of you, just by raising hands, have heard that distinction? Micro versus macro. Okay, so most of you here. Okay, so let's talk about what those are. Microevolution, generally people are referring to gradual adaptations or change. Okay, so for instance, in this picture, we've got a bunch of beetles. They come in a bunch of different colors. Some of them blend in better than others, and so as the birds come along and eat, eventually the population becomes mostly the black colored ones. Okay? So that's a microevolutionary event. They're still all beetles. Nothing's really changed. They're just more adapted to their environment. Okay? And most of my students say, yeah, no, I'm cool with that. That works. I can see that happen. Makes sense. It's the macroevolution that we have some issues with. So macroevolution is just showing the evolution of whales. You knew that whales started out as a four-legged, wolf-like creature called the Mesonephid. Okay? Or Pakicetus actually was the first one. Anyway, big changes that lead to speciation or divergence of species over time. Well, turns out micro and macroevolution are not distinguishable as far as mechanism goes. It's the same mechanism that leads to speciation as leads to these gradual changes. Because given enough gradual changes over time, you tend to get speciation events. And so really, if we can understand the mechanisms and know that microevolution and macroevolution are on the same continuum, the same process over time, it makes it easier to wrap our heads around speciation events. Okay? So that's something else we talk about. Ooh, I want to know about mechanisms of evolution. How does evolution occur? You know, when you remember dashes, remember dashes during the first word. Mutation. Natural selection. Natural selection. Mutation. Genetics. We've got two. Isolation of populations, good. That often leads to speciation. Survival of the fittest. I love that one, survival of the fittest. I actually teach my students it's not survival of the fittest, it's reproduction of the fittest. Because if you are the most awesome person in the world and you survive every blasted thing on earth and you don't have a baby, no one's going to care. You won't evolve. Okay. So natural selection, that's the one that most people are familiar with. But it turns out that there's lots of mechanisms of evolution that we often just aren't even aware of. Right? So natural selection is the most common one, where the environment is selecting for or against certain individuals based on how they're adapted to their environment. I saw mutation up there, that's great. The majority of mutations that happen are neutral, silent, they don't do anything. They're in junk sequences of your DNA. We don't even know they're there. Did you know that you, on average, have 300 novel mutations that you did not get from your parents? That's normal. Okay. But something that you have a mutation for that is silent right now, does nothing. It could be that the environment changes and all of a sudden that mutation is beneficial. For example, I have this crazy mutation. That makes my hair turn red and my skin pasty white. Okay? It's a mutation in the melanin-making gene that doesn't turn pheomelanin into melanin. And it's pretty much neutral. It doesn't do anything. However, when humans started moving really far north and really far south, all of a sudden to have pasty white skin was super beneficial. Because you could absorb enough vitamin D that you didn't get rickets. And all of a sudden, something that was silent becomes a big deal. Right? So things like that happen, and that's just mutation. Genetic drift. This is a big one. This is random changes that aren't positive or negative, they're just changes. They often happen when population sizes get small, or when someone goes out and starts their own population, right? And so cheetahs have had that happen, and it's just changes that are random, and they're not selected for or against, they're just random. So we do get changes over time, lots of changes over time, given that you guys have 300 mutations each. It's a lot of change that can happen just by random drift. Non-random mating, a lot of people chalk this up and call this natural selection, but technically it's not nature selecting it, it's people selecting each other based on who they want to mate with. Okay? And then gene flow. Anytime organisms move in or out of a population, they're going to change the genetics because they're taking them with them. Right? So there's a lot of other mechanisms that most people don't know about or have never talked about that also contribute to evolution. So it's a lot easier to understand if we know all the mechanisms going on. Okay, so let's get to the hard stuff. Evolution really is a thing, and I hope maybe if you weren't open to evolution, you are a little more open now, knowing some of the mechanisms and what evolution actually means. Can we mesh it with our religious beliefs? Well, I don't know about all of you and what you're believing, but I'm going to try to show you some of the ways we've helped students with this issue. Okay? And we've done it in several different religions. A lot of my research is done on Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so you'll see a lot of that data. We're going to talk about it, but first I want to show you this really cool picture. I about jumped out of my seat with joy. Okay, this is my 7-year-old, and he was sitting next to me in church, and he had to give a scripture that day in primary, and so he was practicing it, and he had me write it down right here. It was Revelation 12:7 about the war in heaven. Anyway, so I wrote it down, and then he wanted me to write about carrots and watermelon and corn and blueberries and strawberries and moonberries and the other things you can eat. And then he titled it. On one side it was called the Book of God, and on the other side it was called the Book of Plants. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is okay. Because in a 7-year-old's mind, there's no issue at all. The Book of Nature and the Book of God don't conflict at all. He has no problems with it. And I hope that we can all get to a point where we can talk that friendly about it. So that was really cool. So that's how I kick it off. So I want you to, we're going to rank this. These, you push the arrow up and down, and you get them in the order that you want, and then submit. Let me explain what you're guessing here. So we did a survey. So back in 2008, the Pew Forum sent out a survey about evolution acceptance. They gave people this statement: evolution is the best explanation for life on Earth. And then they looked at agreement on different religious affiliations. The problem is, they didn't ask anything else that I was interested in. So we redid the survey on the same groups, types of people, so they had to be be one of 4 religions. Okay, and we asked them the same statement, but then we got to ask them all other kinds of things. So first, though, let's look at who do you think is most accepting is at the top, right? Least accepting at the bottom. No, I said that wrong. Oh my gosh. Least accepting at the top, most accepting at the bottom. Yes.
Is the environment a factor of this poll? Like, are we talking national?
National. This went out national. Across the United States.
So we're voting nationally.
You're voting for the national numbers, yes. National numbers, you're putting them least accepting at the top and the most accepting at the bottom. Does that make sense? Oh, this is so hard. Sorry. Most at the bottom. Most is number 4. Okay? Huh. Oh, sorry. CGCLDS is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Since the church came out and said we can't say Mormons, my research has become so much harder. All my papers have like really long titles. Anyway, and I've tried all different abbreviations. I'm like trying them out to see what sticks. Sometimes it's just CJC, Church of Jesus Christ, because that was one of the abbreviations that they said we used. Okay, have we figured it out? So agree is in red, disagree is in blue. My 7-year-old picked the colors, so I hope they're okay. And was very insistent when I tried to change them. So they're going to be red and blue. Okay, so were you surprised? A little bit. Can you guys guess Catholics would be low? The Catholics are 68% accepting. Southern Baptists are exactly the opposite. Okay, yep. CJCLDS is the lowest in acceptance. Jewish religion has very little issues with evolutions. Okay? So we thought that was interesting, and then we wanted to know a little bit more about them. So here's something we had the privilege of knowing their age, which was great. So we divided them up into college age, which was 18 to 25, and non-college age, which was 26 and older. And we wanted to know if there were shifts, cultural shifts, in acceptance of evolution. So this is what you're voting. They all have a shift, only some have a shift, nobody has a shift. Oh, I left my there's something to interpret p-value. We know the answer. Ooh, most people don't have a read p-value. Sweet. I know, now that you can see it. Okay, let's look at it. Okay, so the p-value means if it's less than 0.05, it means it's statistically significant. So we don't see any shift in Southern Baptists or Catholics. In Jewish individuals, we actually see that the older you are, the more accepting you are. Which is interesting. And I've talked to several of my Jewish colleagues, and they have suggested there's a growing movement of orthodoxy in the Jewish religion that is driving the youth to be less accepting of evolution. And the exact opposite we see in Church of Jesus Christ. No. Okay. Okay, and so you can see that the youth are much more accepting than the non-youth. I belong to the non-youth, so I can say that. Right? Okay. So, how about human evolution? Well, it turns out it depends on how you ask the question. So this poll that we did was exactly like the Pew and the Gallup poll from recently, where they just asked, evolution provides the best explanation of the origin of modern humans. And you either agreed or disagreed. And then if you agreed, then it gave you options of how you mesh it with religion. Okay? Whereas if they ask them right up front and give them 3 options, we get much better acceptance rates. So what are the 3 options? Well, the first is that human beings developed over millions of years from less advanced life, but God guided the process. This is evolution being used as a tool by God. We call this theistic evolution. Okay? The second one is just naturalistic evolution, that God had no part in it. And then the third is what we call special creation, right? The human beings pretty much in their present form from 10,000 years or less, right? And so when you ask it first just yes or no, we only get about 56% agreement, 45% disagree, but if you give them options, only 18% disagree with evolution. Okay, with a majority being theistic evolutionists. If you've never heard that term, it's a great one to know. Because you may be thinking, oh, that's what I thought. Yeah, you're a theistic evolutionist. That sounds pretty cool. Okay? Okay, so another word for it. So that was interesting. So, then we looked specifically at our population at BYU. And this is where it gets really interesting. So I had a colleague, Bill Bradshaw, who used to work at BYU, this long since retired. I think I took his class back when I was an undergraduate. Anyway, he came to me and he said, I have all this data from students from 20 to 30 years ago. Are you interested in it? And I was like drooling all over the floor. Yes, I want to do something with this. And so we reran the exact same study 30 years later. And what it was is we gave them essay prompts and had them write about their impressions of evolution. And they had done that 30 years ago, and then we read thousands and thousands of essays, and we thematically coded them, okay? And so this, I know there's a lot along the x-axis, but it goes from the most accepting, so I accept all aspects of evolution, to maybe, everything but humans, adaptation only, all the way down to how dare you even ask me, I'm offended. Okay? And so you can see in red is 20 to 30 years ago cohorts, and in blue is SNP. Okay, so if we look at the actual numbers, I did tell you about these, it's kind of hard to see. So there's full acceptance, which is humans, everything, right? And then what we call loose acceptance, where we're okay with parts of evolution, but parts of it we can conflict with religion, like humans, or be like adaptation only. And you can see that we've gone from 13% full to 38% full acceptance. Loose acceptance, 36 to 65%. So it's changing, and then we thought, okay, why is it changing? So we had all these questions about why it's changing. And because we had a modern cohort, we could ask them all these questions. And so that's what we did. Why the shift? So I just want you in one word, give me just your best idea. Why the shift? You will be yes. Education. Rebellion. Information. Good. So education is a big one. That's what we thought too, maybe. So, oh, by the way, the size of the word, you've all seen word clouds, but the size of the word is how many people responded to that. Yeah. I should have said that before. Sorry. Everybody who's younger than me in this room knows that. Probably. But I didn't when I first saw it. Okay. Okay, so that's what we thought too. Maybe they're getting better preparation in high school, because remember, this essay was at the beginning of a bio 100 class. They'd just come in as freshmen. Okay, they just come out of high school. So we thought, well, maybe they're having better experience in high school. So we asked them 3 questions to get that. I just want to tell you the questions before I show you the data. So first, high school coverage. Did you get strong coverage, weak coverage, and none? Okay. High school teacher bias. When your teacher taught it, did they teach it as neutral, atheistic, so destroying religion, religious conflict or skepticism? And then what was your acceptance coming out of high school? You might think, well, how could you ask me that? Because they just left high school like 2 weeks before. Okay? So we asked them, how do you feel? Okay, so just move that for a second. Okay, so this is what we see. They're getting mostly weak coverage, but coverage nonetheless. Okay, most of their teachers were neutral. And they're kind of all over the place. A lot neutral, a lot mild religious conflict. So maybe they're getting better high school preparation. Another one we asked is maybe they're getting less negative messaging by church authorities. Now this is specific to the CJC LDS Church. Okay. And so we asked them, had they ever heard a negative statement over the pulpit about evolution? And we asked them about their LDS seminary. So for those who are not, LDS seminary is taught in concurrent with the high schools. They go to 1 hour of scriptural training, right? And so we asked, how did their teacher approach it? And then the BYU evolution packet. How many of you in here have heard of the BYU evolution packet? You're not doing a very good job. Anyway, the BYU evolution packet is just a compilation of any official statements made by our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, on evolution. Okay? And yeah. So this is what we asked them. And this is what we see. Just fairly encouraging. So overwhelmingly no negative messaging. Not even covered in seminary, and if it was compatible, which is screwy. And then nobody's heard of the BYU. So I'm not surprised. But, and then we asked them, maybe their views towards science are changing, right? Maybe they're getting more educated about science, and science in general is changing. So we asked them several different scientifically controversial topics to ask them what they thought about it. So climate change, is that a real thing? Should we teach intelligent design in school? And should parents be able to avoid vaccinating their children? And it turns out they're like all over the place. So it just depends on what the topic is. So maybe their understanding of nature science is not necessarily improving, it's just sort of where we are and what we're talking about. But we did ask them about their conflict with science and religion, and we do see a change in this. So there's much less conflict today. So this was science and religion conflict. True is in blue, right? So feeling much less conflict between the two. Interestingly though, if you ask whether scientists can be religious, there's still about 30% of my students that don't think I can be religious. So that hasn't changed as much. Maybe they're not scientists. Maybe they don't think I'm scientist. It's fine. Either way, it's the same, right? Okay, so then we thought, well, maybe it's something we're doing at BYU. So then we wondered, the cohort 30 years ago, how many of them, or no, the cohort today, how many of them are children of the cohort 30 years ago? Okay, and it turns out, quite a few, 72%, are children of people who had probably gone through Bill Bradshaw's class. So then we thought, wow, are we actually doing something? So we looked at the end of the biomechanics class to see if we see a shift, just during that class. And this again is the same sort of scale from full accepting all the way down to I change my mind and I reject now after your class. Okay? And this is from 30 years ago to today, and I'll group them up for you so you can see. So this is full acceptance in blue. Oh, very low in blue. In light blue. And loose acceptance in dark blue. Okay, and interestingly, so this is 30 years ago. Bill Bradshaw was taking them from 13% to 38%. And guess where they come into my class? At 38%, and they were taking them to 62%. So we're doing something, which was exciting. Something is happening in the class, right? So we thought, does this work with other religions? So I'll just quickly show you this one. We did it at 4 different religiously affiliated institutions, and we've since had 17 religiously affiliated institutions from all over participate in this kind of thing. Okay, and so you can see the full acceptances in red, where they come in. This is Point Loma Nazarene, or the Church of the Nazarene. This is Colorado Christian University. They are Reformed Christian. And then Evangel, which is Assemblies of God, if possible. Okay, and we had them run what we do in our classes, and every single one of them significantly shifted toward acceptance. And we measured their religiosity to see if we were hurting their faith, and it turns out, no change in religiosity, which is exciting. Okay? We want that. And so the question is, what are we doing? So I'll just briefly show you what we're doing. Okay? By the way, if you want to see resources, we do have a website. We have resources for a bunch of different religions. So we held a workshop last summer with 17 religiously affiliated institutions. They came and made lesson plans for their class. So there are lesson plans for Pentecostals, there are lesson plans for Protestants, Catholics, Presbyterians, Methodists, Church of Jesus Christ of Saints. There's a bunch of them, and several of the teams made videos where they talk about, and the teams were a theologist, a biologist, and a local pastor. They got together and sat down and talked about how can students help wrap their brains around reconciling between science and religion. Okay? So, really quickly, what are we doing? Not this. Okay, this is the deficit model. That if you don't believe in evolution or accept evolution, you're deficient in some way. We don't do that. This is another one that's commonly done. It's resolution. All right, so we've got special creation and we've got evolution, and let's bring in all the evidence, and then hopefully we'll resolve towards the one that makes more sense. Okay, we're still pitting them against each other. We prefer what we call the reconciliation model. Right? We want them to live together in harmony. We want to help students find ways that the two of them can live together, that there's ways that we can reconcile the beliefs on each side. So that's what we've been doing. Just quickly, what have you seen in your education? Just curious. I'm glad to see we're seeing some reconciliation. That's great. Okay, so let me show you the reconciliation approach. This is what it is. I'm going to talk about each one individually quickly. First, we acknowledge the elephant in the room. Hey, we realize this is an issue. We realize that you might be feeling uncomfortable. Let's talk about it. Right? And it's okay to do. Even in a public institution, It's okay to talk about it as long as you're not promoting one religion over another. It's okay to say, look, we can talk about this. We can have a civil conversation about this. Turns out the problem is that 89% of the US population believes in God. But if you survey biologists across the country, it's 25%. And if you survey evolutionary biologists across the country, it's 10%. And so what you have is a cultural conflict between those teaching and those receiving the information. And so one of the things that we are working on in my lab group is teaching what we call cultural competence. Like we do it with ethnicity and with race and with gender identity even, but we don't even bother with those religious folks that are in our classroom. And that's wrong. We should practice cultural competence with religious people as well. So we do that. We address the difference between science and religion. We've talked about this. I showed you that. We address creation from a religious standpoint. What do the scriptures actually say? So we talk about Genesis. What does it say? And it turns out Genesis says a lot of beautiful things, but it really doesn't talk a lot about the mechanism. And we also try to help students understand what the Bible is. It's a compilation of a whole bunch of different books. And not all of them were meant to be historical. They weren't even meant to be. They may all be divine and revelation, but they weren't all meant to be historical. And Genesis is one of those books. Okay? Some of them are poetry. Some of them are letters. And this is a lot, at least in my population, they get very little training on biblical interpretation. And so we try to help them understand that as well. We explain the cultural history. Why are you feeling conflict? Because there's been all kinds of conflict across the nation, right? And probably within your religion. So we encourage them to research their own religion. Where does the feelings of conflict come from? And what does the religion actually say? Now I'm going to show you specifically for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we give them the Beauty of Evolution packet. There are 4 statements in it: the 1909 statement, the 1910 statement, a 1925 statement, and Encyclopedia of Mormonism. And then we also show them the 2016 New Era article through that magazine that came out. And basically, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is neutral. There is no position on evolution, including human evolution. Most students don't know that because they haven't read the Beauty of Evolution packet. So we try to get it out. Right? So we try to just help them understand that, hey, this is okay to learn about and make your own decisions. Right? And then we offer ways to reconcile. I just want to show you this slide. This is sort of a continuum from things that are not scientifically compatible to things that are potentially scientifically compatible. Right? So flat Earth, geocentrism, universal model, young Earth creationism, intelligent science, they don't mesh with the current scientific data that we have. But some of these, depending on how you interpret them, yeah, creationism, day, age, or progressive, is that we have these creation events that are separated in time by a lot, and then we have more creation events, potentially compatible with scientific evidence. Theistic evolution, totally compatible. There's nothing wrong with saying that God was involved. Science can't say either way. So the most scientifically compatible is agnostic. We can't say either way scientifically, so you decide. So I want to point out, atheistic evolution, the idea that evolution somehow destroys God, is just as much a belief system as theistic evolution. It is just as much a religion, atheism, because you're claiming things that science can't show. So it's no more scientifically compatible than theistic evolution. Okay? As far as science being able to show anything. Okay, so I just want to show you this one quick. Do we check this? Is it going to make noise? Yes? Okay. I just want to show you this fun stuff.
Okay, let's see you do what you do. And I'm not going to see us? You can, yes. All right, thank you very much. You're welcome. Now, the thing about bar magic as opposed to regular magic is the fact that I couldn't use big props. I can't afford it. And that's all I have. That's in the world. Now, the thing about magic that happens close to your face is that it has to be performed explicitly. Okay, does that work correctly? That. But honestly, I just do not like card tricks because it's amazing. But anyway, this is your son, and I want to do something to you as well. Oh wow, that my little boy likes. Let's see it. The other side. Thank you. Perfect. I'm going to take this ball, put it right about here. I want you to know that ball goes at you. Thank you. With that ball there and that ball in the middle, abracadabra. Hold it up here. Oh. Oh. Thank you. My name though. That is the name. Thank you.
Okay, so that's smoothie, the ghetto Houdini. Okay, why do I show this? So when I first watched this, I could not wrap my brain around what was going on, and I thought, the only explanation I can come up with is that he's magical. He has magical powers, that's all there is to it. And as I was thinking about it more, I thought, you know what's even cooler? He's not magical. There's a way he's doing that, and I can find out. And I think of the creation the same way. Is it possible that God poofed everything into existence by magic? It is, and that's amazing. But what I think is even more amazing is that he probably didn't. There's probably a way that he did it. And the coolest part is, we can find out. Which makes biology the study of magic. And with that, I'd like to just thank my sponsors and my funding sources. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that wonderful presentation, Dr. Jensen. On behalf of the Science Division at Snow College, we'd like to present this.
Thank you.
Very welcome. Thanks. Any questions for our speaker before we leave?
I'm happy to stick around for questions.
Where can I find the BYU evolution packet?
Okay, so if you go to my website, thericoevo.byu.edu, it's there.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions? If you have private questions you want to ask me, I'm happy to stick around. Yeah.